I actually have some good news for you today. Farmers are furious with Donald Trump. Now, the reason that they're furious is not good, which is they're getting crushed, absolutely destroyed by Donald Trump's tariffs and Trump's pointless, fruitless, endless trade war. But the fact that the farmers are now correctly blaming Trump for what Trump did is a good thing. Trump's lies often work and frequently they go unpunished. We have in front of us step one in Donald Trump actually suffering the consequences or suffering some consequences from his lies, which is that farmers are identifying them as lies. This is step one. Step one is acceptance. Donald Trump's tariffs have led to massive drops in a number of agricultural exports, soybeans, pork, wheat, a number of other farm exports. Now, the administration has tried to sort of make up for this by subsidizing farmers, which sounds a lot like the socialism that Donald Trump claims to be against. But okay, anyway, it's not been enough. Farm bankruptcies are climbing. Farmers are buying less and less farm equipment. So the manufacturers of the farm equipment are starting to suffer. The problems are trickling up, so to speak. And Donald Trump's subsidies just aren't cutting it. Donald Trump has now straight up started lying and saying farmers are doing great again. It's not true, but much like the China phone call that never happened, Trump realizing that things aren't going well with the trade war and saying, don't worry, China's desperate to figure this out. They've called me to start trade talks. Of course, they haven't. There was no such phone call. Donald Trump is simply saying, things are going great for farmers now. And fortunately, the farmers are actually pushing back and the farm groups are saying, no, things are not going well. Quote from Brian Thalman, who is the president of the Minnesota Corn Growers Association. There are dozens and dozens of these groups. Brian Thalman saying, we're not starting to do great again. Things are going downhill and downhill quickly. Will they vote as a result of that? We don't know, but at least they've correctly identified that Donald Trump is lying. The National Farmers Union says Donald Trump's tariffs are making things, quote, worse, not better. Will they vote on the basis of that understanding? We don't know. More and more individual farmers like Bob Coylan are saying, I'm doing terribly since Donald Trump came into office, and it's getting worse and worse. So that's all good. This is just what we call step one. Then it gets to where the rubber meets the road. Will these farmers vote for a Democrat in 2020? Will they stay home? We heard from this same farmer, Bob Coolian, to CNN, quote, if he doesn't lose, he being Trump, if Trump doesn't lose 100% of it from the farm belt, then people are kind of crazy because this is not going well for farmers at all. Are farmers going to vote for someone else? Are lifelong Republican farmers in the Midwest going to vote for a Democrat in 2020? I hope the answer is yes, but I don't know. And this is something I've been talking about for a long time. Just because a lifelong Republican is displeased with what Donald Trump is doing or with some aspect of what Donald Trump is doing doesn't mean they're going to vote for a Democrat. Now, that's okay, and I'll explain that in a moment. We actually had a phone call, a couple phone calls from Trumpists who say, I don't like that Trump hasn't built the wall. And I asked them, it was Doug from Jamul, in fact, I remember. I said to Doug, okay, if Trump doesn't build the wall by 2020, are you not voting for him? And he said, well, no, I mean, okay, I probably still would. And more than likely, the reason he won't build the wall if he doesn't is because of Democrats standing in the way or whatever. So it's really important to understand that any dissatisfaction you hear from these lifelong, reliable Republican voters with Donald Trump, it doesn't mean they're going to vote for someone else. But here's the upside. Even if they just stay home on election day, it's not a bad thing, assuming that the left can get our base out to vote in November of 2020. Because let's be very, very honest about this. If they haven't decided not to vote for Trump in 2020 by now, they're either voting for Trump or maybe staying home. With most of them, the best we can hope for is that they stay home. And that's okay because they're not going to vote for a Democrat. But the reason why this is all okay, and we shouldn't worry too much about these farmers not voting for a Democrat, is that national elections are not won by convincing people on the other side to vote for your person in large numbers, right? there cannot really be an election where 130 million people vote, or whatever the number is, flipped by arguing with people and changing their minds when half the country doesn't vote. It's about getting out the vote, and then we'll accept anything that depresses vote on the right or splits the opposition vote. So I talked earlier this week, Trump has a primary challenger, a Republican, former Republican Congressman Joe Walsh is running in the primary. Maybe he will eventually run as an independent. Will some angry farmers in the Midwest maybe opt to vote for Joe Walsh or stay home as a result of that? That would be fine. We would gladly accept that. Maybe a few percent of the national Republican electorate that isn't pleased with Trump will choose to stay home. They're not going to vote for a Democrat, but they won't vote at all. That still helps us. As long as we get our base out, this is the path to a win. And these farmers, even if they don't vote, can be a part of turning what was in 2016 an election that ultimately was decided by 75,000 or so votes in 3 states. Just a few farmers staying home in combination with us getting our base out can actually make a difference. Maybe some of them will actually go and vote for the Democratic nominee. I don't know, but we don't need them to do that is the point.